Hey there. Ever feel like the world's just throwing information at you faster than you can, like, process it?
Yeah.
It's like you need a cheat sheet for just thinking better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Today's deep dive is all about critical thinking,
Okay.
that essential skill everyone's buzzing about.
It's definitely having a moment, isn't it? But you're right.
Mhm.
Sometimes it feels like people use the term without really explaining what it means.
Right.
Luckily, you've provided us with a great stack of sources to break it down.
Exactly. We've got a bit of everything.
Okay.
The deep philosophical stuff from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's critical thinking entry,
Mm-hmm.
Wikipedia's broader take on critical thinking,
Okay.
and then a really practical perspective from Pearson Talent Lens's white paper, The Importance of Critical Thinking and How to Measure It.
A nice blend of theory and application.
Yeah.
So, where do we start? Should we jump straight into a definition, or is that too basic?
I think jumping into a definition makes sense,
Okay.
but we can spice it up. The Stanford Encyclopedia says critical thinking boils down to careful thinking directed to a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds simple enough, right?
Deceptively simple, I'd say, because
No.
once you start digging into what careful means in different situations,
Yeah.
how goals can totally change your approach.
Right.
And even which part of thinking we focus on,
Right.
it gets much more interesting.
And that's where Talent Lens comes in clutch, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They have this awesome example about fairness
Yes.
that I think illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. The one where they contrast treating everyone fairly versus treating those who put in the most effort fairly.
Yes.
That's a classic.
So in the first scenario,
Okay.
you might reward everyone who achieves all their goals equally.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty fair on the surface.
Yeah.
Right?
But then they flip the script and ask, what if you reward those who put in the most effort, even if they don't hit every goal?
Whoa.
Suddenly, careful thinking means weighing effort over pure outcome, and that changes what a fair result looks like.
Mind blown. And you know what's wild?
What?
This isn't just some academic exercise.
Right.
This impacts how we make decisions every single day.
Absolutely.
From big life choices to just navigating our daily routines.
You're absolutely right. Which makes me wonder, how did this emphasis on critical thinking come about? Was it always this important?
Well, get this.
Okay.
Our sources take us all the way back to ancient Greece to answer that.
Really?
Buckle up.
Wow.
We're going on a philosophical field trip.
Excellent. And who better to guide us than the OG critical thinker himself, Socrates?
Socrates, the guy who basically questioned everything.
Yeah.
Like, was he the original conspiracy theorist, or was there something more to it?
He was a bit more nuanced than that, thankfully.
Okay.
But you're right, questioning was at the heart of his philosophy.
Okay.
The Stanford Encyclopedia really highlights that Socrates wasn't obsessed with finding answers.
Right.
He was obsessed with the process of inquiry itself.
So it's not about having all the right answers. It's about knowing the right questions to ask.
Precisely. Socrates was all about highlighting that authorities and even traditions we take for granted might not actually have the best knowledge. He encouraged people to think for themselves,
Okay.
to challenge assumptions,
Yeah.
and to always be willing to probe deeper.
Wow, talk about a timeless concept. I mean, in today's world where we're drowning in information from all sides,
Right.
that Socratic mindset feels more relevant than ever.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's almost like a survival skill in the digital age.
Oh.
If you can't analyze information, sift through the noise, and figure out what's reliable and what's not, you're going to get swept away.
Okay, so we've got this big picture philosophical foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But how does critical thinking actually play out in our everyday lives?
Yeah.
Like, does this mean I have to start debating the cashier about the price of milk?
Not quite. But the Stanford Encyclopedia actually gives us some fantastic examples of how critical thinking shows up in the most mundane situations.
Yeah, okay.
We're talking catching a train, figuring out why bubbles form on a glass, even just deciding what to wear in the morning.
Really? I mean, those sound kind of basic.
Yeah.
How can deciding between the bus and the subway be an example of deep critical thinking?
That's the beauty of these examples. They seem simple on the surface, but when you break them down,
Okay.
you see all the core components of critical thinking at work.
Okay.
Remember, the Stanford Encyclopedia said it's about careful thinking, directed toward a goal.
Yeah.
These scenarios might be relatable, but they beautifully illustrate that process.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity.
All right.
Let's dive into one of these examples.
Okay.
How about the transit one?
Okay.
Walk me through how that demonstrates critical thinking.
All right. Picture this. You're running late for an important appointment.
Okay.
Your goal is to get there on time, right? But you have multiple options. Bus, subway, maybe even the elevated train.
So it's not just about blindly jumping on the first thing that comes along. There's
Yeah.
actually a thought process happening here.
Exactly. The Stanford Encyclopedia highlights how critical thinking kicks in right away.
Okay.
You're observing.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get downtown last time?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a subway station nearby?
Okay.
Then you're inferring,
Yeah.
based on what I know, is the subway likely to be faster than the bus during rush hour?
Right.
Maybe you even pull up a transit app to experiment with different routes and see which one is estimated to be the quickest.
I see. It's like you're gathering information,
Yeah.
weighing different possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and making a judgment call based on the evidence you have available.
Precisely. And it's not just about the end decision.
Hmm.
It's about all the mental steps you take to get there.
Right.
There's observing, wondering, imagining, inferring, experimenting, judging,
Yeah.
and finally, deciding. All these pieces work together to form that careful thinking the Stanford Encyclopedia talked about.
Wow, so much happening beneath the surface of what seems like a simple choice.
Exactly.
I'm starting to realize that even the most mundane decisions can be mini workouts for our critical thinking muscles.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these examples so powerful.
Yeah.
They show us that critical thinking isn't just some abstract concept reserved for philosophers and academics.
Right.
It's something we all do every single day.
Which makes me wonder, are there other examples in our sources that demonstrate this?
Oh, absolutely. There's the ferry boat example where...
Hold on. Before we jump into another example,
Yeah.
I think it's important to address something that's probably on our listeners' mind right now. We keep talking about critical thinking as this process,
Yeah,
but isn't it all just about logic?
right.
Like, if you can think logically, you're basically a critical thinking master, right?
That's a really common misconception.
Okay.
And thankfully, both the Wikipedia article and the Stanford Encyclopedia address it head on. While logic is a super important tool in the critical thinker's arsenal,
Right.
it's not the whole story.
Okay, so what else is going on? What's missing from that equation?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Critical thinking is about using a whole bunch of different skills to tackle a problem or question.
Okay.
It's about striving for clarity, accuracy, relevance,
Right.
even fairness in your thinking.
Mhm.
It's about being able to connect ideas, spot patterns, and even use a little creativity to come up with solutions.
Wait, creativity. I thought this was all about being super rational and analytical.
Yeah.
How does creativity fit into critical thinking?
That's where it gets even more interesting. Remember those examples from the Stanford Encyclopedia, like
Yeah.
the one with the ferry boat?
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with those initial hypotheses about what that pole is for?
Yeah.
That requires creative thinking. You're imagining different possibilities,
Mm.
going beyond the obvious, thinking outside the box.
You know what? That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Even in our own lives, sometimes the most logical solution isn't the best one.
Right.
Sometimes you need to get creative to find a truly effective approach.
Exactly. And the Talent Lens paper adds another really important layer to this.
Okay.
They highlight that critical thinking isn't just about what you think.
Uh-huh.
It's about what you do. It's about taking that careful, reasoned thought process and actually putting it into action.
So it's not just about sitting around philosophizing.
Right.
It's about actually doing something with those insights.
Right. It's about making decisions, solving problems, communicating your ideas effectively.
Mm-hmm.
All of that flows from good critical thinking.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
We've gone from ancient Greek philosophers
Yeah.
to everyday scenarios.
Right.
And it all points to the idea that critical thinking is this dynamic, multifaceted process that's woven into every part of our lives.
Exactly.
Which leads us to the big question.
Okay.
How do we become better critical thinkers?
Oh.
Give us the secrets.
The good news is you don't need to be a philosophy professor or a logic whiz to sharpen your critical thinking skills.
Okay.
Our sources actually provide some fantastic, actionable advice that anyone can use.
Lay it on me. I'm ready to upgrade my brain power.
Well, first off, all three sources emphasize the importance of developing what they call a habit of inquiry.
Okay.
Basically, be curious, question everything, even things that seem obvious.
Okay. I can get behind that.
Okay.
I'm already pretty good at asking why about 1,000,000 times a day.
Right.
What else?
Next, and this is a big one, be willing to challenge your own assumptions and biases.
Oh.
We all have them, and they can really distort our thinking without us even realizing it.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
It's so easy to get stuck in our own ways of seeing the world.
right.
Any tips for breaking out of those mental ruts?
Absolutely. The key is to actively seek out different perspectives.
Okay.
Read widely, talk to people who disagree with you,
Yeah.
and try to understand why they hold those beliefs. It might not change your mind, but it will definitely broaden your thinking.
Solid advice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm making a mental note to go find someone who disagrees with me about,
Yeah.
well, everything.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun debate.
And finally, probably the most important tip of all,
Okay.
practice. The more you flex those critical thinking muscles, the stronger they get.
So it's like hitting the mental gym.
Exactly.
No pain, no gain.
Every problem you encounter, every decision you make, even just a piece of information you come across, use it as a chance to practice your critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Question assumptions, analyze arguments, look for evidence, consider different perspectives.
This is starting to feel really empowering.
Yeah.
Like, we actually have the ability to improve our thinking and make better choices just by practicing.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And as the Talent Lens paper reminds us,
Right.
it's all about transferring critical thinking from theory into practice.
Right.
It's not just about knowing the concepts.
No.
It's about actively using them in your daily life.
Okay. Deep breath in, deep breath out.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here. We went from the historical roots of critical thinking all the way to practical tips for boosting our own brain power.
It's been quite a journey. We've explored the nuances of what critical thinking is, why it's so vital in a world overloaded with information,
Right.
and how it can help us make smarter decisions, solve problems better, and even understand ourselves and the world around us just a bit better.
And the best part,
What's that?
we're all works in progress. No one is born a perfect critical thinker.
Right.
It's a journey, and this deep dive is a great first step. But before we wrap things up completely,
Yeah.
I think our expert has one final thought-provoking point to share with us.
You know, we often think of critical thinking as the solo activity. Like we're all locked in our own heads,
Right.
analyzing and dissecting information on our own.
Yeah, like a bunch of brain hermits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the Wikipedia article brings up a really interesting point.
Okay.
Critical thinking can also be collaborative.
Ooh, I like that. So, bouncing ideas off each other.
Yeah.
Debating the best way to solve a problem.
Precisely. Think about it.
Right.
When you have a thoughtful discussion with others, even those you disagree with,
Yeah.
it forces you to articulate your thoughts more clearly.
Right.
You have to consider different viewpoints.
Right.
And you might even spot weaknesses in your own logic that you hadn't noticed before.
That is so true. I know sometimes I get so stuck in my own head
Yeah.
that I can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
But when I talk it out with someone else, it's like suddenly everything clicks into place.
It's like having a second set of critical thinking eyes on the problem.
Yeah.
And that's something to keep in mind as you continue honing your critical thinking skills.
Okay.
It's not just about what happens in your own mind.
Okay.
It's about engaging with the world, with other people, and with ideas that challenge your own.
I love that.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been a total mind-opener. We've gone from ancient philosophers to everyday scenarios, breaking down what critical thinking is and why it's so vital in your life.
Absolutely.
We've even gotten some super practical tips for sharpening those critical thinking skills.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The more you engage with these ideas, the more you'll start to see critical thinking at work in every single part of your life.
So, to our listener out there, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those critical thinking muscles flexed. You've got this. And until next time, happy thinking.